Hi everyone! Welcome back to another Planetarium live stream. My name is Jessica. I am the director of the Planetarium, and with me I have one of my students who is not just going to be a voice in the sky tonight. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Eli. I am a physics and astronomy student at UMD.
So tonight, since we are in a new month, we have some new things up in the sky. We're going to be going through the stars and constellations that we can find, telling you stories behind them, some tricks and tips to help you find them yourself the next time you're able to go out stargazing. And then after that, we have a very special announcement that was teased earlier today. We are doing our very first giveaway, and we'll give you all the details for that a little bit later. So we're going to get started with the Star Show. I need to bring up the program real quick. So the program we use for our Star Show is called Stellarium. It is actually free. It's free software that you can download for yourself and play around with. It's actually very easy to use. And I'm sorry that you're seeing a black screen. There we go. So it's very easy to use. I do have the link in the description for the video if you are interested in downloading it and playing around with it yourself. But it is really a planetarium that you can put on your computer. And so you can tell it a location, a date, and time, and it shows you what the sky looks like. So we are currently set to Duluth for right now. And so we can see the sun getting pretty low in the western sky as we are getting closer to sunset. But we want to actually get to sunset and into the night. So I'm going to pull up my little clock and fast forward time until we reach about 10 o'clock. There we go. So sunset today is at about 9:02, but right after sunset, you usually can't see a lot in the sky, and that's why we fast forwarded to about 10 o'clock tonight, because that's when most of the light is gone from the sun. It's starting to get pretty dark, and you can start to see the stars up in the sky. So I'm going to turn us around to the north. Zoom us out just a little bit so that we can see what's going on. And then I'm going to turn it over to Eli, who's going to tell us about the northern sky.
Awesome. Okay, so when looking in the northern sky and kind of just in the sky in general, for me, I suppose because I live in the northern hemisphere and that's kind of where I start off. I usually like to start off by finding the Big Dipper, and that's for a couple of reasons. The first being that it is probably for me and a lot of other people the easiest thing to find in the nighttime sky. It's really big. And it's super easily recognizable, and its stars are pretty bright. So, I mean, even if you're in like a pretty light polluted urban area, you can still find the Big Dipper. So that's where I like to start. And the other reason I like to start with it is because it's a really good stepping stone to finding a bunch of other stuff in the nighttime sky. But before we take some of those jumps, I want to talk about how the Big Dipper is actually not a constellation itself, but it's what we call an asterism. The Big Dipper is kind of a small, recognizable part of a bigger constellation called Ursa Major, which is the Big Bear. But we focus on the Big Dipper just because it's kind of smaller, more recognizable. Ursa Major itself is it encompasses the Big Dipper, and you start off by finding the handle of the Big Dipper, which is the tail of the Great Bear. So then if you go down the handle or the tail and along the top of the dipper, you're going along the Big Bear's back, and then you can kind of go from the pan up a little bit, and you can find the ear of the Big Bear, down the snout to the nose, Then you can go down its chest, down the front leg, up the back of the front leg, along the stomach, down the back leg, and then up the back leg and back up the tail. Way bigger, way harder to pick out at first glance, but it's a really cool constellation. I like it personally because I think it's very much up to interpretation, as with all other constellations. Because personally, I think it kind of looks like a horse because it has that long tail. And I've heard a lot of people say a lot of different animals. I've heard cat more than once. I've heard skunk for both dippers. So very up to interpretation. So once you've found the Big Dipper, the next move that I like to make is to find the North Star. And the best way to do that is you take the two stars at the edge of the pan of the Big Dipper, connect them, and draw a line going outwards, or in this case, to the right. And you will find at the end of that line the North Star. North Star is a really cool star itself. It's called the North Star because it's aligned with Earth's north polar axis, or on its axis of rotation. So it's the one star that doesn't move as Earth rotates. So it's a pretty cool navigational tool. And it's also part of the constellation Ursa Minor, or the Little Dipper. Now, Ursa Minor and the Little Dipper are the same thing. Actually, there's no more to Ursa Minor than the Little Dipper. And the North Star is the end of the tail of the Little Bear, or the end of the handle of the Little Dipper. So you can travel down along the handle or the tail, and then you'll find the rest of the Dipper or the rest of the bear. And personally, I think Ursa Minor looks more like a squirrel than anything else because it's got that big bushy tail. But there are the two bears, or the two Dippers. And there's kind of a story behind why the Dippers, or rather the bears' tails, are so stretched out. And it goes that once upon a time, Zeus had a friend, because Zeus would like to go down from Mount Olympus every now and then, kind of slough off his responsibilities and go down and talk to the people that lived just kind of in the overworld. And he found a friend named Calypso. However, Calypso was kind of nefarious, and she wanted to transform Zeus into a bear so that she could disguise herself as Zeus and rule over the rest of the gods and all the people. Zeus was wise to her plot, though, and he kind of reversed the spell and turned her into a bear, and she turned into Ursa Major, the big bear, and he let her go. But sometime later, he saw that this lady that he had turned into a bear was being hunted by a hunter. Little did Zeus know that this hunter was actually Calypso's son. But after he figured it all out, he felt bad and he didn't want anything bad to happen to Calypso. So he turned the son into a bear as well, grabbed them both by their tails, spun them around, and threw them into the nighttime sky so that they could always be together and always be safe from hunters. So that's the story of why the bear's tails are so stretched out. And I actually just reached the time. Jessica, if you want to take over now, we're just at about 7:10. So I will.
Sure. There is one more that I want to point out to you guys in the northern sky because it is, along with the Big Dipper, one that's super easy to see because it's several very bright stars. And so you can see it down here on the north, right near the northern hemisphere or northern horizon. There is a big W in the sky. And this W is actually a queen named Cassiopeia. And so if you're new to stargazing or finding constellations, or maybe you're somewhere that it's not very, very dark, the two good things to start out with trying to find are the Big Dipper and its 7 bright stars, and our big W, Cassiopeia, because they're very bright. You can see them even with some pretty significant light pollution. So those are always great places to start. All right, so we're going to turn our attention over to the west. About to set in the west is one of our springtime constellations that's probably pretty famous, and that is Leo the Lion. So people always say the trick to finding Leo is to search for the backwards question mark. The problem is, with lots of stars in the sky, and if you don't quite know where to look, you could probably form a few different backwards question marks out of the stars. And so you need to be able to find the right one. And this is where our Big Dipper is actually going to help us. Like Eli said, it can be a launching off point to help you find many other constellations in the sky. And so we're going to take the cup of the dipper, and this is going to become like an arrow. And this arrow here is going to point us to the correct backwards question mark of Leo the lion. And so this backwards question mark, the top part of it is his face and mane. This bright star, that's the dot of the question mark, is Regulus. That's the heart of the lion. And then the rest of his body stretches out behind him. He's kind of laid out on the sky, kind of very lazy, kind of napping up there. But one of the ways you can remember this is if the Big Dipper were to spring a leak, it would pour all over Leo. And so that's one trick to help you find Leo. All right. Turn in the sky a little bit more, now more towards the southwest. We have a few more things that the Big Dipper is going to help us find. And so this time with the Big Dipper, we are going to use the handle of the Big Dipper. And so the handle is kind of curved, it's arced, and so we're going to follow the arc of the handle of the Big Dipper to this bright star named Arcturus. And so from the handle of the Big Dipper, we arc to Arcturus. Now, Arcturus is the brightest star in the constellation of Bootes. I know it's spelled Bootes, but it's pronounced Bootes. And you can see it's got kind of this kite look to it. It's supposed to be a bear herder, so a guy who is kind of herding our big and little bear around the sky. I don't exactly see a guy from a kite, and this is something a lot of people don't really understand or realize. They think that once they know where to look, the constellations will pop out, it'll make sense. But as you can see here, they don't always look like they're supposed to. You have to have a pretty good imagination most of the time to see what the Greeks were describing in these constellations. So the star Arcturus has a really great story that goes with it. And I am forgetting the Native American tribe that it comes from. Lindsay normally does this story, and she's not here tonight. But this does come from a Native American tribe in the, I believe, the Southwest, so it might be the Paiute. But to them, this bright star is known as Coyote's eyeball. And so in these stories, Coyote is always somewhat of a troublemaker. He's always kind of mischievous. And in this particular story, Coyote has come across this group of really pretty ladies that he wants to try and impress. And he decides the best way to impress these ladies is by plucking out his eyeballs and juggling them. Yeah. So in order to be more impressive, he starts juggling his eyeballs higher and higher and higher, throwing them further and further up, until he accidentally throws one of his eyeballs a little bit too hard. It flies up a little bit too high and ends up plop right here in the nighttime sky. And so that is Coyote's eyeball looking down on us. It's always a fun story to tell. All right, so we're going to do a little bit more star hopping. So we have arced to Arcturus. And now from Arcturus, we want to spike down to this bright star known as Spica. And so that is our kind of journey from the Big Dipper. From the handle, we arc to Arcturus, and then we spike to Spica. So Spica is the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo the Maiden. And so here we have her body, her arms, and her legs. She's a pretty big constellation, one of the bigger ones up in the sky. And Virgo, the constellation, was used as kind of like a calendar for the Greeks. They knew that when Virgo started to appear in the sky, they'd start getting better weather. And when it started disappearing, the weather would start to get worse. And so the story that goes along with this tries to explain why Virgo seems to be tied with good weather. And so Virgo is actually a woman named Persephone, who is the daughter of the goddess Demeter. Persephone is gorgeous, and the god of the underworld, Hades, falls in love with her. And he does what any gentleman would do. No, instead of being nice and trying to win her affections, he decides to just kidnap her and drag her down to the underworld with him. Well, her mother realizes that Persephone is missing, eventually finds her in the underworld, and argues with Hades to let her daughter go. And during this time, this argument is taking days. Persephone gets hungry, and she decides to eat a couple of pomegranate seeds. And this may not seem that significant to us, but to the Greeks, one of their central ideas was where you eat is your home. And so since Persephone ate while she was in the underworld was now technically her home. And so Hades was like, aha, she has to stay here now. Well, Demeter wasn't going to let that happen. And so they end up reaching an agreement that Persephone will stay for 6 months with Hades and 6 months with Demeter. Now, Demeter, being a goddess, is one of the goddesses that controls the weather. And so for the 6 months of the year that Persephone is with her mother, Demeter is very happy. And since she's happy, we have good weather. And then for the 6 months of the year that Hades has Persephone, that's when she is beneath the horizon. We don't see her up in the sky. And since she's away from her mother, Demeter is very sad, and that's why we have bad weather. And so that is the story the Greeks came up with to explain how Virgo, the constellation, this pattern of stars, seem to be associated with good weather, which I think is really cool. All right. So let's do a little bit more star hopping around. I'm going to turn the sky some more so that our star Arcturus is now more to the right. And so remember that Arcturus is in Bootes, which is this kind of kite-like figure here. Remember, supposed to be a guy, but looks like a kite. And right next to our kite of Bootes, we see this backward C. This is actually a crown known as Corona Borealis. Now, I'm showing you Corona Borealis for a couple of reasons. One, it's another pretty easy constellation to spot, since it's this kind of backward C and has some decently bright stars. But our northern crown is also going to help us find the constellation of Hercules. And so to find Hercules, what we want to do is take our crown and turn it into a spoon. Now, the fun little story I've come up with, because I don't think this looks like a kite, Bootes, I think it looks like an ice cream cone. And so we're just adding on a spoon to help us eat our ice cream cone. So to make our crown become a spoon, we're going to have to add these 2 stars right here to turn into the handle of our spoon. Now, the reason we're doing this is because these 2 stars that we are turning into the handle of our spoon are actually the belt stars of Hercules. And so here is his body, and then his legs kind of go up, And his arms are over here. He's kind of looking like he's flailing across the sky. But what a elementary school class decided instead, when we had them in the planetarium about a year ago, was right next to Hercules is the constellation of Draco the Dragon. And so they've decided that Hercules isn't flailing, he's doing an awesome ninja roll to avoid Draco's fire breath, which I think is a much better story than saying he's flailing across the sky. All right. And so lastly, we're going to turn over to the eastern sky. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more because up in the east is the kind of quintessential summer sky. And what we see, three bright stars, which are known as the summer triangle. And so high up in the east, we have the star Vega, and then Altair, and Deneb. And so there are our three bright stars of the summer triangle. Very bright, very easy to see up in the east in the summer. So each of these stars is in its own constellation. So Vega here is in the constellation of Lyra the Harp. Let me turn those constellation names on. And so we kind of have like the harp frame right here, and then the strings going across. This is another case where it may not look quite like you want, or it could look like something else. I know one of my students sees a butterfly here, and so here's kind of the body of the butterfly and then the wings. But our favorite comes to us courtesy of a guest we had about 2 years ago, who insists that when he sees the constellation of Lyra, he sees a man doing squats. And so Vega is like his head, and then here's the barbell, his body, and then his squatting legs. And I just think that's absolutely perfect. So that's all I see now when I look at Lyra. I don't see a harp, I see a man doing squats. All right, now Lyra is the first of the constellations in the summer triangle. Our star Altair is in the constellation of Aquila the Eagle. And so we have kind of this teardrop shape, which is the body of the eagle. Here's wings and then some talons. He's a little bit of a chunky eagle, but that's because he's feasting on Delphinus the dolphin here. And then our last constellation in our summer triangle is what the star Deneb is in, and that is Cygnus the swan. And so here is the swan's tail feathers, wing, wing, and then long swan neck. And you can notice that there's this kind of cloudy haze stretching across that our swan appears to be flying through, and that is actually the Milky Way. And so our swan is flying through the Milky Way. All right, so I am going to let time move forward a little bit more, because if there is anyone who likes to stay up late or maybe wants to get up really early, around 2 a.m. over in the southeast, you can find quite a sight tonight. We have 3 planets and the moon up in the southeast around 2 a.m. So we have Jupiter and Saturn, and then the moon, and then Mars. So if you like getting up early or you want to stay up a little bit later tonight, there is some other cool stuff that you could see up in the nighttime sky. Now, as we get later into the summer, Jupiter and Saturn are going to be visible earlier and earlier in the evening. And I'm trying to remember if Mars, which direction Mars is going, if he's retrograde right now or not. I don't remember, but I will find out and let you guys know later on. All right. So I'm gonna switch us back over now to us. So yeah, now you have some tips and tricks to help you find these constellations. Like Eli said at the beginning, the Big Dipper is a really great kind of starting point because as you've seen, you can use that to find many other things up in the sky. Now, if you'd like some extra help, we do have a link to a free star chart for the month of June that you can download and print off to help you find everything that we just told you about. So before we do our giveaway announcements, Eli, do we have any questions on our constellations?
Nope, nothing yet.
All right, well, let's get to the big exciting news of tonight. So for those of you who watched the launch the other week, where SpaceX and NASA sent up 2 astronauts, the first time that we have launched from American soil in about 9 years. While they were launching off in the video of our 2 astronauts in the kind of capsule going up into space, you may have noticed a little shiny dinosaur kind of hitching a ride on the rocket. And it just so happens that one of my students, one of our planetarium students, went out and found this plush dinosaur. And so we have a couple of them that we want to give away to you guys, to our amazing viewers. So we have set up a website with all of this information. The website is right here, and I will post it in the chat real quick in just a second. So let me bring this up real quick. All right. So the way this is going to work is we want you guys to design a mission patch. So in case you don't know, a mission patch is what's worn on an astronaut suit that kind of depicts the mission that he's on or they're on. It can give the astronaut names, logos, fun pictures, that sort of thing. And then we have lots of examples here of mission patches from various different missions. And so your task, if you want to have a chance to win one of these dinosaurs, is to create your very own mission patch and submit it to us. We have linked to a template if you'd like to have a template to use. You can see that these patches come in various shapes, so feel free to be as creative as you want with them. But if you want to be entered to win, send us your mission patch design a couple of different ways. You can either send us an email or post it to Facebook or Instagram and tag us. And all of the entries that are in by noon on July 1st are going to go into a random drawing to possibly win 2 of these dinosaurs. So we'll have 2 winners. We will announce the winners. We'll do the drawing live on stream on July 1st. That's one of our Wednesday programs. Unfortunately, we are having to limit this to the Duluth Superior area because that's the easiest for us to get these out to people. So yeah, let me get that posted in the chat real quick. I don't know, Eli, if you were able, but I'm gonna do it real quick. There we go. Let's see if that worked. Did that work? Yes, looks like it did. All right. So yeah, that is our first giveaway. We're very excited, and we're really excited to see all of your creative mission patches that you come up with. We are limiting this to 1 entry per person. And am I missing anything else?
I don't think so.
I think that's it. I think that's all we need. So by July 1st, and we'll do the drawing that night.
And more like another post will be made on all of our social media tomorrow with the link, so you don't have to come back to this live stream if you want. We'll have it on
Yeah,
our pages.
yeah, we'll get all the information posted. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so we're very excited to see what you come up with. We're very excited to see. This is going to be random drawing, so we're not like picking the best patch or anything like that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what everyone comes up with. I know if you've been to the planetarium, you know that we have a little kind of coloring area, and I'm always so excited to see all the fun things that people draw and color for us. So this is just our way of being able to continue that while we're in quarantine. So
Hmm.
yeah, if you have any questions, now is a good time to kind of put them in the comments. Um, and while we wait a minute to see about that, um, our schedule for the next week on Saturday, Lindsay is going to be doing another, um, not version, Eli, what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Iteration.
Not iteration. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. So she's going, we'll just go with iteration. Um, of the history of STEM. So you might have seen the show she does about the history of spaceflight, which is all about the amazing women who helped launch us into space and get us to the moon and beyond. But this
Hmm.
version is the history of astronomy, which is all about the discoveries that women made that helped shape our understanding of the universe. That unfortunately don't get the credit that they deserve. A lot of big discoveries were actually made based off of their work. And so we just want to highlight those. And so that will be Saturday. And then next week on Wednesday, Eli is doing How Do We Know, which is going to get into kind of how it is we know some of these things that we may just spout off as fact, like the speed of light, the size of the Earth, the distance to the sun. Eli, you doing that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's showing you how we know these things that we often just kind of gloss over as, oh yeah, it's this, we know it.
Hmm.
And then next Saturday, we're going to be doing a show about the Northern Lights. So a nice, exciting lineup for our next upcoming week. Eli, did we have any questions come in?
Nope.
No? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed our constellation stories. We're very excited about our giveaway. Hopefully you are too, and we are eagerly awaiting your mission patches. And
Hmm.
yeah, I guess we will sign off from there then. So thanks for joining us. As always, you can find these videos on our YouTube channel. And we will see you next time. Have a great night, everyone. Bye.